Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Teen Talks. We're so happy to be here. My name is Rehan. This is Susan, and we're back for another episode. Now, Susan, before we get started, I have a question for you because I remember when I was a teenager, my parents would get mad at me quite often. They'd be frustrated with me from time to time, and it was my fault, I do agree. But I want to know, because I'm sure it was the case for you at some times as well. Have you ever been frustrated with your kids, and how frustrated would you get sometimes with things that they would do, or just things that maybe were going on in your life that translated with them?
Oh, well, my teens were perfect. All three of them were perfect. Nothing ever happened. I never got frustrated at all. We all get frustrated at times with our teens, and it's normal. It happens
Mm,
to everybody. No teen goes their whole teenagerhood without frustrating their parents. I can guarantee it.
yeah,
No matter how perfect the teen is and well behaved, there are times because it's just happening in themselves. They can't help it. That stuff's going on in there. And I think when we're parents and we get frustrated, we forget that all that stuff's going on inside them and they're confused and they might be all scared. They're trying to figure life out. They don't know what to do. Their hormones are raging. Their body is changing. It's they're very self-conscious about all that.
yeah,
And so I think as hard as it is, and we want to have our ego
mm,
in play. We want to protect our ego. It's like we want to be right. We want to be able to fix this. We want to turn them around. We want to do all this stuff. But we need to get rid of that ego because it doesn't serve. So, like, Rehan, let's just say you came in and you're frustrated and you're doing all this stuff, and I say something like, just be quiet. Stop talking that way. You're being disrespectful. Da, 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 da. What are you going to do? What are you going to feel like?
well, I'm gonna feel really bad, first of all, um, because I think there's a side of me where I wouldn't feel heard,
Yep.
because I think at that age, especially, I don't necessarily know how to express myself in the right way or to express what I'm feeling. So when all of a sudden I'm told that maybe you know, I'm disturbing, one of my parents, or I'm getting in the way, and I feel that type of reaction from them, it's definitely going to shut me down, and have an even harder time expressing myself in the future. And you know, I, I remember there were instances where I knew that I was in the wrong because I had done something, yet it's despite that, I remember like sometimes, and I'm not blaming them or anything, but yeah, when my parents, because it happens, I mean, they're human. If they would, get a bit frustrated with me, I remember how bad it would make me feel. In fact, I have a story, it's really funny, where my mom got really, really like mad at me, and she didn't, get frustrated or anything like that often, but this time she did. And I just remember like I started crying, and the only person I felt close enough to that I could actually go to was my mom. So I actually just started crying and I went to her and I gave her a hug, even though she was the one that got mad at me, which is really interesting. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Like as a teenager, we're going through a lot. We don't necessarily understand what's going on. So we'll do things and we don't have that experience that, parents have when it comes to life and everything. So yeah, we'll do things, and I'm sure that it might piss some parents off. Like I'm sure it does. But I also know that when we feel that we're frustrating our parents and that we're hurting them, or that they don't feel okay when it comes to something that we've done, we feel that and it can hurt us sometimes, especially if it's expressed in a certain way.
Yeah.
Um, but I do want to know, Susan, from your perspective, because, and this is like a big question that I'm sure many parents are asking, but like when parents are in that type of a situation, like it could be something where their kids have just like they've done something that has just frustrated them to the core.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all this other stuff that's going on in their own lives, so like in the parents' lives, maybe things at work are tough or whatever's going on, but there's so much that's going on and it's just boiling up and they're ready to explode. What can parents do in that situation to deal with that frustration, to continue to communicate with their kids in a way that's healthy and that won't damage the relationship in any way? What are some tips that you have for them?
Yeah. So the reason I brought up that thing of yelling back and saying, stop it, behave, stop acting that way, blah, 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 or you start to just fight them. I'm speaking from experience because I've raised 3 kids and I've learned along the way what works and what doesn't work. Plus, I've done a lot of research too. But when you go back and you come back at them the same way that they're coming at you, it just does this. It just fuels, and gets worse. Then you're into this slamming doors and, all this stuff that gets you
Yeah.
nowhere. And you're no better off, and your team's no better off. So what I've learned since is, and this is the hardest part, is you have to go, what in this moment, because I'm the adult here, I should be the one who has more control. What in this moment does my child need?
Mm.
Right? So I when we look at it that way and we start to go, remember what's going on in their minds, their bodies, their everything. Look at them right now. Are they scared? Are they needing validation? Are they needing a hug? Are they needing to be heard? Are they needing to just get it out
Yeah.
and be okay with giving them what they need at the time? It
Hmm.
might be just, so I can tell the story because when I was a teenager, I remember going through all these emotions. I had self-doubt up the kazoo. I think I've talked about hanging out with the wrong crowd and all that. But I remember this one specific incident where I came home from school or something, and my mom was there, and I'm talking to my mom, and I don't even know what it was. Maybe she didn't let me do something, or I have no idea. But for some reason, I lost it. I mean, full on lost it. Screaming, almost like throwing a toddler temper tantrum, just like, oh, and so frustrated. And then I started yelling every single bad word I could think of to my mom, really bad words.
Yeah.
And I hate you. I hate you. You're the worst person ever. I don't want you around me anymore. Just terrible things. And my mom stood there in the kitchen, just like hands by her side, just kind of listening. She didn't say one word,
Mm.
not one word. And can you imagine if she would have started yelling at me back? If she would have started yelling at me back, like, don't talk to me that way, blah, 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 I would have gotten even madder, right?
Yeah.
She knew not to get engaged into that drama and all of that because it would just make it worse. She
Hmm.
knew, and this is what I was felt so guilty about this for so many years. But once I became a parent, I understood it. She knew I was going through this stuff.
Hmm.
She knew I was frustrated and scared or whatever. My emotions were crazy because your emotions are crazy when you're a teen, heightened. And she knew to just step back, listen, basically straight face nothing
Yeah.
until I stopped. And I think I went to my room and cried or something. And I needed to settle down because otherwise there was nothing. So she needed me to I needed her to just not say anything
Mm.
because I mean, I said the worst things to her.
Yeah.
And my parents were divorced at the time. And later in life, I told my dad about this. And my dad was like, if I was living at home in the home still, I would have never let you talk to your mom that
Mm.
way. And I'm like, you know what? And if he would have come back at me or and said stuff like, you don't talk
Yeah.
to your mom that way, we go again,
Mm.
right? You just let it go.
Yeah.
Unless they're hurting someone or themselves, or they're being extremely inappropriate,
Hmm.
let it go.
Yeah.
Don't react. Give them what they need. And what
Mhm.
they might need if they're doing that is maybe a boundary. But you don't give them that boundary until you can talk calmly. And so
Yeah.
for the parents, you know, if you're not able, if you're feeling like you want to blow and blow back at them because you're so angry, that's when you walk away,
Mm.
remove yourself from the situation.
Yeah.
Because anytime you get angry at your kid's going to get angrier.
Mm.
Anytime you get angry at your kid is going to you're pushing your relationship further away. So by her not saying anything, I now look at her, and afterwards we never had bad words. So it was like our relationship grew stronger because I trusted her to not fight against me. She was on my side.
Yeah, and you learned your lesson in some way where you
Did.
understood that, and that was without her having to push back at you. It
Yeah,
was because she gave you that space that you needed, that you were able to kind of reflect on your own and
exactly.
realize that. Yeah.
I,
Because
I
I feel
think
like,
lots of times we do need to step back and say,
mm,
this is not about me.
yeah,
This is about them. They need to go through this. They're
yeah,
going to get the consequences on their own.
yeah,
I don't have to do it.
yeah. And like I feel like it's a very impulsive reaction, right? When you're frustrated and everything, it's the emotions that just build up, and then it's almost like there's this inevitable sort of release, right? And what you're saying is that if parents are able to look at it from a different perspective and almost put themselves in their kids' shoes and
Yes.
understand where they're coming from, then the reaction is going to be different, right? If that's kind of what you're saying. But like I have no experience being a parent, obviously. So one of the questions that I have is how are parents always expected to always like be the bigger person and always give and give and give and almost like sacrifice and make sure that because those emotions, they're real, they're valid, and I feel like parents sometimes they need to express themselves that way. They need to just let it out. But it's like for me at least, when I imagine it, I feel like it's a hard thing to take that step back, especially in the heat of the moment, to just take a breath, understand what's
Mhm.
going on, and before reacting that way. So like, do you have any advice for people who, because it's obviously easier said than done. Do you have any advice for
Yep.
people who would struggle with that and do have a hard time taking that step back, taking that deep breath and before acting? Like, is there any sort of advice that you can give for any of those parents?
Yeah, it is hard. I'm not gonna sit here and say that, oh, just turn it off. It
Yeah.
is hard. It's emotionally, it's hard to hear kids say stuff to you that's so hurtful or behave in a way that's hurtful. But you just have to go. If you can't control your emotions in that moment, you have to leave.
Yeah.
You can say something like, I need to take some time right now, and go out away from them and scream into your pillow or do whatever, because yes, you're right, those emotions are real, but you don't want to lash them out onto your kid.
Yeah.
I can think of a time, I know this is sometimes you have to look at a toddler and a teenager. In many ways there's similarities because so
Hmm.
much is happening in their bodies and their minds and they're trying to figure it out. It's just different stages.
Yeah.
And so I had this one time where my middle son was, I think he was
Hmm.
three, I don't know, something like that. And he was being such a little, and we were in the car and I'm driving and he kept doing this stuff. And I was so angry. He wouldn't stop and everything. And finally I pulled the car over and I got out and I went to the back, got him out of his car seat and I spanked him. And
Mm.
I wasn't a spanker, but I was so enraged.
Yeah.
And I think about that later afterwards, after it happened. And I felt so bad that I did that.
Mm.
And I thought, what I should have done was pull over the car, pull over,
Yeah.
get out of the car, walk around the car, and get it out that way instead of
Mm.
on him.
Yeah.
Because what did that do? How does he feel about mommy now?
Mm.
You know, mommy hurt me, or mommy
Yeah.
did something that's, um,
Yeah. And that can last, like that feeling, and that it could scar emotionally
yeah,
for a long time, even maybe, forever. Who knows?
yeah,
Who knows? And I also want to share, um I guess, my perspective when it comes to this as a younger person, as a teenager. Like, I remember sometimes when I would also lash out to my parents, and I would say things sometimes.
you
Or yeah, I'd react in certain ways, and I just remember, like, it never came from a place of like it wasn't like I didn't love them, or it was coming from a place of there was like some sort of a buildup. And like you said, I mean, teenagers are going through this huge transformation, right? Where we don't even understand what's happening with our bodies, with our hormones, with our brains, with our all of that. Everything is just developing and evolving.
Dr.
So
Daniel Siegel calls that teenagers are in remodeling. Their
that's such a
brains are
good way to put it.
remodeling. They're under construction.
Yeah, it's
So
such a good way
yeah.
to put it. And it's so
Mhm.
true. And then that's why I feel like, and even I remember I felt bad after I said something or I did something, because I realized, like, that's not me. That's not what I wanted to do. That's not how I wanted to make my parents feel or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm sharing that is because I feel like in most cases and in most scenarios, that's the same for teenagers just in general. Like, when they do react, it's also an impulsive reaction that they're having, or something else that's going on and that's maybe building up in their lives, and they have to release it in some way. And it's not necessarily against the parents all the time.
No,
It's, in fact, in some weird way, it might be a way of proving to you that they feel comfortable enough to express themselves with you,
exactly.
but they just don't know how to express themselves the right way,
Good point.
correctly, with words and stuff like that. So I just wanted to share that, just to kind of help with that whole the whole idea of trying to understand your
Yeah.
teenager and your kid in those moments. I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind. It's like, I don't think that they're against you. I think they're
Yep.
fighting things inside of themselves. They're trying
Yes.
to figure things out themselves, and they just don't know how to cope with everything all at once. So they
Yeah.
need some way to kind of like express it, and that's what happens. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, you
You get the
guys
brunt.
you guys get the front end of it all. But yeah,
But you make a good point there too. Of I didn't I didn't hate my mom. I love
yeah,
my mom, and I was sitting there saying, I hate you," with the fullest emotion there
mm,
was. So much anger. I didn't hate her,
yeah,
even though I said it to her a million times and all these other things. Something was like I didn't like. Maybe I wasn't able to go do something that she knew I shouldn't do, or I don't know what it was,
yeah,
but I didn't hate her. And then I
yeah,
felt guilty later. Years My mom passed away 3 years after that, so that made it even worse because
yeah,
but we were by then we were friends again. I mean, we were not. It was just a moment,
mm,
and the more we can just be there without our egos, the better your relationship's going to be in the long run. And I'm sorry, but we got to have our own crap together, be
yeah,
able to have our own crap together so that we can handle their crap,
yeah. It's so
right?
true. I completely resonate with what you're saying, because it's like you have to have it, you have to give to yourself before you can give to others. You have to, um, if you want to give someone orange juice, you have to have the oranges, like,
Yeah,
that kind of idea. And just because you were talking about, you know, moving into the future and everything and the impact that it can have, just to finish off and have one more question. The question is, what impact does it have if you choose to take that step back and to try and understand where they're coming from before reacting impulsively, with that frustration? So where does that take you? And then on the other side, how can it steer the relationship in the other direction if you do act in an impulsive way, in a like frustrated state? Like, what are those two situations? What are those two scenarios? What are those two
yeah,
directions? At least from your experience, or how you've seen things, and with the people that you've interacted with as well and helped.
yeah. You get nowhere when you go into the negative. You
Mm.
just get nowhere. They're gonna feel hurt. They aren't gonna trust you with their stuff.
Yeah.
Why should I talk to you about my stuff? You just get mad at me.
Mm.
What, you're not on my side. So I'm gonna go to my friends, or I'm gonna go to whatever, and maybe hopefully another adult, but you don't want them to. You want them to come to you.
Yeah.
And if you truly love your kid, which most parents truly love their kid, you've got to be on their side.
Mm.
Doesn't mean you get to let them do everything they want when you know it's not good, but you've got to be on their side. You've got to understand and listen to them, and never ever try to have a conversation in a heated moment. It's got
Mm.
to be when everyone's calm, because nothing happens. And
Yeah.
when you can do that, it's amazing the relationship you will have with your child, because they'll trust you to come to you for anything,
Yeah.
you know, anything.
Yeah.
And that's what you want.
Yeah.
No judgment, no judgment, just be there. And when
Mm.
they're teenagers, you don't have much control anyway.
Yeah.
So don't try to.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah. I just thought of an interesting analogy that I can relate to really well because of my life as a soccer player. I was just thinking, it's like, imagine if your family is like a team, right? As a parent, instead of positioning yourself as the coach of the team, position yourself as the captain of the team, because you're on the team, but you have a leadership role, but you're
Yeah.
still playing the game with them. You're
Yeah.
still helping them out. You're not just
Good
telling them
analogy.
what to do, right?
Mhm.
I feel like that's like the ideal role, right? Because then
Yeah.
you're in it with them. You're on the
Right.
field fighting the battles with them. You're winning with them, you're losing with them, and you're playing the game.
Yeah.
And you're just showing them maybe a better way or a different way to go about it. And you're helping them out along the way. And that means, like, yeah, sometimes you have to tell them what's right and what's wrong. Like, that's going to happen. But at least you're leading by example, and you're not just telling them, like, do this, do that, do this, do that on the
Yeah.
sidelines, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's critical. It's hard, but it's the only thing that works. And if you have a teen that's really in trouble, I mean, like
Yeah.
really bad things are happening, yes, you need to calmly, start to build. If you've messed up that relationship already, it's time to apologize and say, I want to be on your side. I
Yeah.
want to help you. Let's talk. Tell me what you need.
Yeah.
Um, our egos, I think sometimes, if we don't have ourselves in check as to far as who do we really want to be?
Mm.
Do we want to be this person that's up here and just they're going to do what I tell them to do? They're going to
Yeah.
live the way I want them to live. They're going to do all this. That is not, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's not good for you either. When you let them take the road and let them experience the consequences of their decisions, their actions that may be really bad,
Yeah.
they learn that way.
Mm.
You just be there for them. I've heard this thing and I love it. It's like, do you need to be heard? Do you need to be hugged? Or do you need to be heard, hugged, or
Helped.
helped? Thank you. And I love that, because if
Yeah.
you just ask those questions to them, they'll tell you. And most of the time, they need to be heard or
Mm.
hugged. That's most of the time. They don't want your
Yeah.
advice. They don't
Yeah.
want your lectures. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. Most of the time when we're teenagers, like, shut up, mom. Shut up,
Yep.
dad.
Just shut up. I don't want to hear you anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, listen to me. Listen to me. I think that's a big thing too. It's like, I think teenagers believe that they are the center of everything.
Oh, of course.
And it's not a bad, like, I mean, at that age, that's all they know. They feel like everything is
Yeah.
revolving around them, right? which is why like they just need that. They just need that unless they like they understand through whatever medium that the world doesn't revolve around them. I feel like that because that is their belief, then they need that, they need you to listen to them, and they need you to be there for them and to just help them and to be by their side. But
Dr. Shefali, that book, that Conscious Parenting, such a
yeah.
good book. She talks about you no longer walk in front.
Mm,
You're walking side by side or behind.
yeah.
You're not leading anymore.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes is hard for a parent to go through because you've been this person for so long for them, the leader.
Yeah.
And it's hard to come to the side and especially hard to sit back here. But
Yeah.
you're no longer in this role.
Yeah.
So it's hard to let go, but you've got to let go.
Yeah. You have to.
And your relationship is the strongest thing because now my kids are gone. They're not here anymore. They're off living their lives, and I don't have
Yeah.
them in my home anymore. And I would not want them to leave not having the relationship we have now because I chose
Mm,
to learn and understand and change my way of parenting. It made all the difference in the world. So
yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
Susan,
if you've
we
been that
appreciate
parent
you.
that's been doing this, it's time to back off. It's time to apologize and say, I'm here for you, whatever you need to support you. And if they're going down some road that seems wrong, they will find the correct course. If it's really harmful, then you may have to step in and provide some boundaries, but otherwise let them go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Well,
hope that answered your questions.
yeah, no, definitely. And thank you, Susan, for sharing and for opening up about it, because I'm sure that there were a lot of insights that, parents can take from this. So thank you for that.
Yes, always. That's what we're here for, right?
Yep.
That's what we're here for. So if you want more of this or you like what you've heard today, share it with somebody else, comment, subscribe, ask us questions because we want to know what you're struggling with and what we can help you with. Whether it's from the teen side, or from the parenting side. Here
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. And we have a bunch of other episodes that are already out on self-awareness and making decisions and having control and all these other things that you can go ahead and check out on the channel. You'll have links to them coming up soon at the end of the video. So go ahead and check that out. And we'll see you next week.
Next week, every Friday.
Sounds good. Yay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Go love on your team and hold back.
All right. Bye. Take care, everyone.